I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. We're executive directors of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which produces Freethought Matters. Coming up, we're going to talk with a brave provider of abortion care in the U.S., Amy Hagstrom Miller, who will tell us what she's doing to protect access to abortion rights.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation, which produces Freethought Matters, is the nation's largest association of free thinkers. That's atheists, agnostics, and other non-believers. We invite you to join us in our vital work to keep our secular government free from religious influence. Become a member at ffrf.org or ask for a complimentary copy of our newspaper, Freethought Today. Freedom depends on freethinkers. Watch prior episodes of Freethought Matters on FFRF's YouTube channel.
Our guest today, Amy Hagstrom Miller, is founder of Whole Woman's Health, a series of clinics providing abortion and gynecological services in many parts of the nation. Amy Hagstrom Miller also founded the nonprofit Whole Woman's Health Alliance in 2014, which exists to remove the stigma around providing quality abortion care.
Amy Hagstrom Miller is a fierce defender of abortion rights. She won the lawsuit, Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstedt, before the U.S. Supreme Court in 2016, in which she successfully challenged abortion regulations that create an undue burden on the patient. In 2021, Amy Hagstrom Miller was the lead plaintiff in a challenge of the infamous Texas bill known as SB 8, the first abortion ban tied to a civil bounty law incentivizing strangers to sue for money anyone who facilitates in an abortion.
And to acknowledge her steadfast commitment to reproductive rights and access, our foundation recently gave Amy Hagstrom Miller FFRF's Forward Award, reserved for individuals who are moving society forward. And she is surely doing that. Welcome to Freethought Matters, Amy Hagstrom Miller.
Thank you so much for having me.
And as you have put it, this year has been quite a gut punch for abortion rights. When you accepted this award at our convention, which happened to be in Texas, you told us this was the first time you'd been back in Texas since Roe fell, and you were running 4 clinics in Texas, weren't you? So this has been an incredibly stressful situation, for you, as well as, women and pregnant people in Texas. So what's it been like?
It's been a horrific time. I mean, we struggled with SB 8 to begin with, where we had to deny the vast majority of people seeking abortion care services the ability to care for them in Texas. And that started in September of 2021. And then the Dobbs decision leak happened in May. And so we had this sense that, the fall of Roe was pending, right? And it really sent us into a tailspin, knowing that the same amount of people in the communities that we serve in Texas are still going to need access to safe abortion care. Abortion bans don't do anything to prevent unplanned pregnancy. They don't do anything to help people prevent pregnancy. They just basically block people from getting professional care from trained medical professionals like us. And so it was really next to impossible to plan for what would be next, right? We had to close 4 clinics. And on the operational side, that meant selling buildings and negotiating lease buyouts and trying to find new work for our staff and figure out how to care for the people being denied services and how to get them to the places where they could get those services. So it's been multi-layered and really challenging.
So these laws are really just punitive, punishing women for wanting to execute their rights, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it punishes people And, keep in mind, these laws don't represent the majority of people's feelings and beliefs in this country, not even in Texas. The people who are elected, the people who are enforcing these kinds of restrictions don't represent how the majority of us live our lives. And most people know somebody or love somebody who has needed an abortion or will need an abortion in their lifetime. And none of us want people we know and love to be treated like this, to be denied care in their community, forced to delay that care, forced to travel out of the community, all for a very simple and very common medical procedure that, almost 40% of people in this country will have at some point in their life.
So as we mentioned, back in 2016, you won that case against laws restricting abortion before the Supreme Court. But when you brought a similar legal challenge against Texas Senate Bill 8, that ban and bounty law in 2021, the Supreme Court refused to help. What's different? What has changed since then?
The Supreme Court has changed completely since then. I mean, the court that we were in front of in 2016 couldn't be more different than the court we went in front of a couple of years ago. We have 3 justices that are now appointed by President Trump that bring religious beliefs and bring a totally different fiber to the court. If you want to understand a little bit of what has changed, I would recommend reading Justice Sonia Sotomayor's dissent in our Whole Woman's Health case. It is fiery. She cannot believe that the court declined to step in and block this bounty hunter sort of vigilante justice law from going into effect. It has changed not only precedent, which people talk about all the time, but has changed actually the very fiber of the court standing up for people who are experiencing undue burden, who are being preyed upon, and who deserve access to safe medical care no matter where they live. Night and day difference from 2016 to what we experienced last year.
And of course, since 2016 to 2020, the court became ruthless, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying, being replaced by Amy Coney Barrett. Such a traumatic change. And you mentioned the dissent that was made by Sonia Sotomayor. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that. That's where she was mentioning that there was a stench, the politicalization of the court.
Yeah, I mean, she talks about the stench of this court. And, she's reacting to the oral arguments that were heard in the case Whole Woman's Health v. Jackson. There was actually even a moment, where it was almost shocking, the lack of empathy and the lack of understanding of how these kinds of restrictions really affect people on the ground. SB 8 not only tormented people seeking abortion, but it put the whole community basically on alert. Those of us who provide abortion, the many of us who have helped somebody get access to an abortion in our lifetime, everybody was on high alert because of the way this law was written. And the law really took the power away from the justice system and put it in the hands of random people on sidewalks who might decide to accuse people, right? It's just unprecedented. I mean, really, not since the Fugitive Slave Act have we seen people incentivized to really hunt people down outside of a justice system, and for them to not step in and act is pretty terrifying to set that precedent.
I suppose you had this more than I did, this sense of disbelief, because at that point when the Supreme Court was hearing SB 8, they had not overturned Roe versus Wade. So obviously the writing was on the wall at that point, but that must have been just absolutely nauseating for you as the plaintiff.
It was. The writing was on the wall, and you could hear in the oral arguments of our case, Whole Woman's Health v. Jackson, our case was heard exactly 1 month before the Dobbs case was heard. So you could hear the sort of arguments and the line of questioning. You also hear what they're not asking in the line of questioning, questions that are sort of omitted. You hear that as well. And so a month later, we had the Dobbs case, and the oral arguments in the Dobbs case were shocking as well.
Yes, they were.
Well, last May, we saw the leak about the pending decision in the Dobbs case, Dobbs versus Mississippi. And of course, on June 24th, the court declared abortions no longer a constitutional right and overturned Roe v. Wade. As you mentioned, what kind of an effect was that on your clinics there in Texas and some of the other states with trigger laws now?
We had to stop providing abortion services right away. I mean, at 10 a.m. that morning when the decision came down, we had to stop seeing patients in Texas. And there were trigger bans that went into effect in multiple places around the country immediately. And to date, access to safe abortion has been banned in at least 13 states in this country. And as you can see from the midterm elections, abortion is actually really popular. People are incensed by this restriction and by the overturning of Roe. It doesn't represent the majority of people's beliefs. And there is at least a third of the country right now that's really suffering, where abortion has been banned and where people are blocked from getting that care. And many people can't just travel thousands of miles and take multiple days off work. And so the disproportionate effect on people in the South and the Midwest is, it's terrifying.
Did this affect any of your other clinics around the country?
So we had to close 4 clinics in Texas. We've had to suspend services intermittently in Indiana. We won an injunction to block Indiana's abortion ban from going into effect.
Yay.
And so we were
That's
able
your
to
case?
reopen our clinic in Indiana, at least for a few months. Our other clinics in Virginia and Maryland and Minnesota are experiencing an influx of patients who are traveling from other states. And so that affects, those patients and that staff and those physicians as well.
And there was some good news, as this is being recorded, that there was a judge that put on hold Georgia's 6-week ban. Does that affect any of your clinics?
Yeah, so Georgia's 6-week ban got put on hold, which means that people are not having to travel outside of Georgia for the time being. And so that's allowing, our clinics in Virginia to have more room to see the patients who are coming from Virginia, as well as West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky. And I think it's helping a lot of people in the South.
Yes.
People from Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas who are displaced to be able to be seen in Atlanta, in other places in Georgia. So that's having a very positive effect on people's ability to get abortion care in the South.
Are there any estimates in how abortion care has declined now in Texas?
There's a lot of decline. I think there's some data coming out from the Texas Policy Evaluation Project, which is at UT Austin, that is analyzing who's been denied abortion and who's been forced to continue a pregnancy, who may be self-managing their own abortions because they can't travel, and then where people who are able to travel are being seen. And people are going to Kansas, they're going to Colorado, they're going to New Mexico, and having to stay for multiple days, oftentimes bringing their children with them in order to get the safe abortion care that they need.
I read after the Dobbs decision was leaked that there was a huge spike on Google in searches for vasectomies. Is the need for abortion going down, or is the need still the same?
The need is still the same. We still have the same amount of people in communities facing unplanned pregnancy. Fortunately, we do see increased demand for vasectomy, like you said, for long-acting contraception like IUDs or Nexplanon. But in the same communities where abortion is banned, oftentimes it's difficult to get contraception as well.
Yes.
And so that has been one of our focuses, is to try to be sure people get accurate information, that they can get the resources they need. In places like Texas, millions of dollars, I think it's $80 million in the last budget, go toward crisis pregnancy centers that are oftentimes religiously affiliated, non-medical folks who are giving misinformation. So it's really important for people to get accurate information about where they can get an abortion, and also where they can get contraception, including vasectomies and long-acting reversible contraception as well.
And it's criminal that this is taxpayer money misinforming people. But I should also say that here in Wisconsin, where a minute after Dobbs, abortion was illegal again, we're the state that it's the hardest in the union to get voluntary tubal ligations. So it's a real problem here in Wisconsin. But before we go out for the break, Amy, can you talk about just a little bit more about the harm of the Dobbs decision, what it's been like for women, patients, the clinic staff in many parts of the nation, and what it's been like for you?
Yeah, so interesting you mentioned Wisconsin. We have a clinic in Minnesota. We're seeing a lot of people coming from Wisconsin into Minnesota, and we are still answering all of our phones from Texas. And so we have hundreds of people still calling us, many of whom don't know abortion is no longer available in Texas. And it's heartbreaking for our clinic staff to answer those phone calls and no longer be able to help them in Texas and be sort of turned into these travel agents kind of trying to help them get the care outside of the state. Our commitment remains, even though our ability to help people has changed. Now it's funding people's travel, helping them understand where they can go. But it is a huge impact on people's families, on communities. It's going to have a long-term impact on maternal mortality, on the foster care system, the education system, for decades to come. And, we're doing what we can to help mitigate the harm. But there are a third of the states in this country where people don't have access to safe care, and it's discriminatory just because they happen to live in a state where abortion has been banned. Their outcomes of their pregnancies and their mental health and financial health are going to be greatly affected by the fall of Roe.
Yeah, I mean, a human right should not depend on your zip code.
Correct.
So we have to take a break, Amy Hagstrom Miller, but when we come back, we want to ask you about religion and abortion, and also maybe cover some of the good news, such as strategies to enable continuing access to abortion care in states where it's been banned or restricted. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist.
When I first recorded that commercial back in 2014, being openly atheist in America was still fairly uncommon. Today, the fastest growing religious group in the country is the non-religious, especially among the young. That progress is heartening, but the religious pushback is fierce and the forces of Christian nationalism are well organized. Our progress won't continue unless we work together so that reason and our secular constitution will prevail. That's why I'm asking you to join the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics working to keep state and church separate, just like our founders intended. Please join the Freedom from Religion Foundation today. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute, where no religious body seeks to impose its will, directly or indirectly, upon the general populace.
Let's restore respect for America's secular roots. Help the Freedom from Religion Foundation defend the wall of separation between state and church. Join us at ffrf.org. Freedom depends on freethinkers.
And in March of 2021, the legislature introduced a 6-week ban on abortion. The anti-abortion folks call this a heartbeat ban. Science will tell you there is not a heartbeat. There can't be a heartbeat before there's a fetus. But this is language. They're very good at language. They're very good at messaging, and introduced that restriction in the state of Texas. And this law was the most restrictive abortion ban that this country has seen at that point in time. The other part of the SB 8 that was terrifying is that it's what they call, quote unquote, vigilante justice, that it incentivized people to report anybody who might not only provide an abortion, but do what's called aiding and abetting in the assistance of abortion. So somebody who gives somebody a ride, somebody who lends somebody money. It was attempted and successfully terrified everybody in all different stratas of the society. People were afraid of helping folks get to the abortion care that they deserved and that they needed. We haven't seen a law like this since the Fugitive Slave Act, where people were incentivized to hunt other people down. I remember people at that time called it Texas Taliban. I saw a lot of people posting about on Twitter and on social media, and I remember saying, first of all, that's pretty racist. Second of all, this isn't the Taliban. This is homegrown United States Christian extremism.
That is our guest, Amy Hagstrom Miller, speaking at FFRF's recent 45th Annual National Convention, where she accepted FFRF's Forward Award. Amy Hagstrom Miller runs the Whole Women Health Clinics that provide abortion care in several states where permitted. And first, to pick up where your speech left off, Amy, why do you call the abortion bans evidence of Christian extremism?
Because it is. This ban on abortion is rooted in the current sort of Christian rights interpretation and their belief system. It's actually not really rooted in Christianity. It's rooted in this sort of religion's interpretation and sort of taking over of the political system, and really having their focus be on banning abortion. Whereas, the Bible doesn't actually even mention abortion. And I think many people who originated actually making abortion legal and helping people get access to abortion prior to Roe were religious faith leaders, right? And so what has happened to access to abortion being sort of hijacked by the Christian right over the last decades is shocking. And their sort of use of, or misuse, I would argue, of sort of Christian tropes is really damaging to lots of people. Many of the women that we care for in our clinics come with a lot of angst that comes from their religion. Instead of it being comforting and supporting to them, they feel very shamed and judged, not only for seeking an abortion, but around their sexuality in general. And so I think this comes from a very rigid and extreme branch of Christianity that I think does a disservice in many levels to the majority of people who profess to be Christian in this country.
Yeah, let somebody who believes it's a sin not have an abortion. Why can't they let it stop at that?
Well, and not all Americans are Christian, right? And we can't start to approach this like a theocracy. I mean, we see patients of lots of different religions, and people have very different ideas about sexuality, contraception, conception, life, pregnancy, death, all the things. And so part of being the United States is that we're supposed to be welcoming and supporting of people of all faiths or of no faiths. And I think we've really lost touch with some of those founding sort of values of this country when we see this kind of religiously motivated restriction being put forth.
Many Christians are pro-abortion. It's just the extremists that are the problem. So what can we do? How can we fight back? What about medication abortion? Is that one solution?
Medication abortion is really great to be able to get to people early in their pregnancies. Unfortunately, telemedicine is restricted in most of the states where abortion has been banned. We do offer telemedicine abortions with medication abortion by mail at Whole Woman's Health in the states where we can. And we find that some people are traveling to those states from places where abortion is banned. So that's one thing. I think talking about abortion through a positive framework, talking about how access to safe abortion has helped somebody that you know or you love, and shifting the way people think about abortion in this country, I think is one of the most powerful things we can do. Because I think the sort of religious right has really dominated the conversation about abortion in this country for decades, and it doesn't really match with the majority of people's experience of abortion, and people understand. I mean, you can see from the last elections, I mean, look at Kentucky, I mean, look at Kansas, right? People understand that access to safe abortion is very important. And, it's not just Democrats who have abortions. We provide abortions for everybody. And I think that's something that most people understand in this country, and that this overturning of Roe does not represent the majority of people.
So, Amy, I understand that Whole Woman's Health Alliance has something called Wayfinder to help pregnant persons find where to go. How does Wayfinder work?
So we offer a program called the Wayfinder program that literally helps people find their way from a place where abortion has been denied to them to a place where they can get access to safe abortion. We have staff answering those phones who are highly trained clinic staff. Unfortunately, some of them lost their jobs in clinics because the clinics were forced to close, but they are exceptional at navigating how to help people get access to the abortion they deserve, helping them get funding. We provide funding for the actual abortion. We provide funding for the travel for people who need it. And that Wayfinder program has helped lots of people from states where abortion is banned get the abortion they need, either through medication abortion by mail or through an in-clinic abortion at a brick and mortar clinic in one of the states where abortion is still available. And so that program needs support and is really effective. at answering people's questions and kind of helping support them and navigating through the myriad of restrictions that are present for a lot of people in order to get the abortions they need.
And for those who just want to offer support, are there ways to get involved? How can people find out more about programs like that?
Sure. So they could go to wholewomenshealth.com or wholewomenshealthalliance.org and support the Stigma Relief Fund is our abortion fund where we help people pay for abortions. The Wayfinder program could be something they support. We also have an option for people to just share their own abortion story or share a story from somebody they helped or supported or that they know and love to destigmatize abortion and really get some of those narratives out into the community about the positive value of abortion in our culture.
So as you mentioned earlier, there is some silver lining here, some good news that abortion rights seem to be winning big in some of the states adopting good ballot measures in that. So how do you see our country regaining its way? Of course, the court doesn't represent the people anymore. The people are way ahead of the court. Is it all legislative from now on? We got about 60 seconds here.
Yeah, so there's 3 branches of government for a reason, right? And the judicial branch has failed us to protect our access to safe abortion. And so we have to look at the executive branch and Congress and try to pass proactive legislation that can not only preserve access to safe abortion, but can even be more robust in its preservation than Roe was. And I think that's what we need to call on the Congress and the Senate to do. We elected them and we went to the polls specifically with abortion as one of the leading issues that this country cares about. Even young people showed out way more than anybody expected. And even young people say that they value access to safe abortion, just like generations before them and generations afterward. And so we need to listen and do something about it in Washington.
Call your senators in this lame duck period to pass the Women's Health Protection Act that passed the House and not the Senate. And we also have to look to people like you, Amy Hagstrom Miller, and to the people to protest this great injustice. So thank you for your work.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching Freethought Matters.
Because free thought matters.
Hi, I'm Steve Pinker. In my book, Enlightenment Now, I show that the world has become a better place as reason has been overcoming superstition and tribalism. But the values of the Enlightenment are under attack. That's why I'm a proud member of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest association of free thinkers working to keep state and church separate. Please join me in supporting the Freedom from Religion Foundation to ensure that our government is driven not by religion, but by reason.